What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Affiliate Marketing Unfiltered podcast. We are here today with Christian, Tom, and Mike, who will do a short introduction in a sec. This is a finalization of our three-part series on affiliate marketing fraud. Christian and I have had 2 sessions already where we've discussed how the problem exists, where miscommunication issues lie, and who's responsible. We tackled that one from our perspective. Then the second session was aimed at vetting affiliates effectively, the KPIs for fraud prevention and monitoring, and then systems for enforcement. So those were the 3 topics that Paul revealed were the most desired ones after Christian put it out on LinkedIn, and we decided to tackle the information that people asked for. And now this last episode in the series is going to be focusing on the same topics, just not from, well, I'm not going to be speaking about that too much anymore. Christian's not going to be speaking too much about that. This time it's going to be a huge brand. So welcome, Mike from Shopify, and we have Tradedoubler as an affiliate network. Welcome, Tom. I would say let's just do it in order from the screen that I'm seeing on my side. Mike first, then Tom, and then Christian as a quick introduction, please.
Thanks for having me. I'm Mike 𝗕𝗫𝗄. I work over on the affiliate team at Shopify, specifically our operations, where I head up a lot of our compliance.
I'm Tom. Been at Tradedoubler now for, nearly 4 years. I head up network quality and compliance internationally. I'm based in the UK, but we have offices all over Europe. A new one coming up in the US and Australia. And that's me.
Nice. I work at Adpolice, so we are a paid search and affiliate marketing solution that's dedicated to safeguarding brands from fraud and compliance risks.
Nice, Chris. You actually managed to do it quick this time. That was pretty cool.
Your little promo the other day had me laughing.
Yeah, thanks for the clear introduction, guys. 𝗕𝗰𝗙𝗂𝗶𝗫𝗂𝗂. I'm the agency perspective in this whole story here. So I think we have a nice collection now. So the brand, the network, the tool, and the agency that sits in between as well. So I guess let's just dive right into it. So it's going to be split into 2 parts. So basically brand perspective, network perspective. Let's start with vetting the affiliates effectively as the first topic. Mike, from a brand perspective, what are the KPIs that you use to monitor affiliate quality?
So in terms of monitoring affiliate quality, we're more so looking, particularly before an affiliate joins our program, we're looking at what is their promotional method, how large is their audience, and what kind of content are they making. If it's not relevant to what our brand is representing, we really have to question, why would you be trying to join our program? So those are the general quality indicators that we're looking at as we vet our affiliates before they come into our program.
Okay, nice. So that ties in pretty well, Chris, you see. So its relevancy is the biggest thing. That's exactly what we discussed last time as well in the previous episode. So that's pretty good to hear. And then, Tom, from your perspective, from a network?
I mean, they're not too dissimilar to us, I would say, but relevancy maybe not so withstanding. I think that obviously applies more to programs. You do get some publishers who just want to join every single program because their only concern is just driving as much money as they can, and they might run like a finance blog and they're just trying to join loads of travel programs, even though when it comes to promoting it, they're not driving any sales and they're concerned as to what it is they're doing. Those kind of people do exist, unfortunately, but that's exactly what Mike is kind of referencing there. So what we kind of do is, there are some really obvious things, I guess, that kind of have to go mentioned anyway, but things like straightforward as site ownership and things like that, they have this kind of automated methods in place to sort of prove you are who you are. But then there's also quality things as well. So what we do at Tradedoubler is we have the automated things to make sure that, the information you're providing is legitimate. It could be regarding like billing information. It could be regarding like the company behind the site or whatever, that these things are real and they exist and they're correct and you own the site. But then there's also a human aspect of it. So this kind of ties into what Mike said earlier about like the quality of the content that they're making and that has a relevancy. We do get some people who join us who are like, a business. And it's like, I think that maybe you want to have a program and not join us as a publisher. Occasionally we get musicians try and join us who, some of them do want to join music programs, which is completely fine. But some of them think that because we're like a network, they think that because there's like a publisher aspect involved, that they think that they are there to like promote their music. And those kinds of things get a bit convoluted. So those kind of things, surprisingly, they do happen. And you have to kind of weed those out a little bit by simply going on the site and looking at what they offer. Because with the advent of AI, this is a straightforward example. There used to be a time when you saw a blog and you would get so paranoid that this blog has like just copied the content from someone else. That almost never happens anymore because you can just go to ChatGPT, go to OpenAI and say, can you please write me a content piece about this? Which is all well and good, but what human being is going on that site, reading that blog, and then making a purchase? It's all pretty much almost zero. So you go on this site, you look at the quality of the content, and if it's extremely low quality AI based content, not to say that AI content's all bad, but there is a bar that you have to kind of reach in order to get to a human user. If that bar is extremely low, and you as someone on the network can spot that immediately, then straight away you can say, what's the point in having this person on there? Then you don't bring any value here. So there's a kind of a mix there of like an automated and a manual check that kind of benefit both us and the program a little bit too.
I have a question, sorry to interrupt, but is there any like allowances? I know, Mike, you mentioned about that if, a publisher comes on board and their content's not really relating to like what your brand guidelines are, if you want to call it that. Is there any kind of examples that you have where maybe you have let somebody in that maybe doesn't 100% line, but there is some kind of synergy there? Does that happen quite often or?
Not as much as you would hope.
Okay.
But we definitely do have cases of that where somebody will join where it doesn't seem like it would be the best fit, but it turns out that they're about to make content that would be very relevant, or they have a really interesting idea of how to generate content or partner with us. So we are very open to that. But in terms of our vetting, as we're having applications come into the program, we're looking at some pretty base criteria, and if we're not seeing a clear fit or a clear understanding of why they're trying to join, we typically don't want to bring those people in. One of the big things that we actually run into is that a lot of affiliates don't understand what a program is when they sign up to apply to it. So a lot of people hear Shopify affiliate program, so they think they're going to sell items that are sold on Shopify. But our program is about referring new merchants to open their businesses on Shopify. Yeah. So we'll have people that'll then write in saying, well, where are all the products? And we're like, that's not our program. Did you read about the program? Because you actually have to read documentation before you click apply. But that tends to be more of the issue. But then sometimes there's a few that go that route, and then they actually have a really great idea that they want to test out, and we're open to exploring those ideas.
Yep.
But it's very rarely that we're just letting anyone in to kind of have a free-for-all with how they might want to promote Shopify.
Okay. And is it fully manual, or is it automated, some of this vetting process?
It's a mix. Obviously, it always depends on what platform your program's using, but there are automations for some. There are some of the processing based off of size, country location, types of promotional properties. And then there is very much a human element to go in there and actually make sure that, one, the automation works, and also to really qualify some of these that maybe were declined, but then write in saying, listen, I don't understand why I'm declined. I have like this entire portfolio of everything I do. And we're like, okay, well, let's go manually send them an invitation to join. So it's always going to be a mix. And I don't think we're ever going to hit a point that automation is going to get it right.
Chris, remember you asked me the question on the last one where you said, how would you manage this if you have tens or hundreds of thousands of affiliates? So I guess my question to Mike and Tom is, do you actually manage to do manual vetting on every single application?
No, there is definitely not manual vetting on every application. We have an automated process, and then what we do is if someone's declined, they are able to reach out to our support email if they're looking to get a better understanding of why they were declined or to make a case of why they should be in the program.
I would say for Tradedoubler, technically, yes, we do manually check every single one of them. But there are some methods in which you could get auto denied because of like missing information or like in some cases false information. But provided you get past that like very low hurdle, which like 99% of people do, then you'll get manually checked. But then we have all methods like if we approve someone and we think that they're a really good fit and that they should operate internationally because they have a base, here or whatever, then when it comes to them expanding into other regions, that's an automated thing for us as well to make it a little bit quicker. But if someone's joining us for the very first time and we don't really have any inclination as who they are, then yeah, that will be a manual check from us just to be sure.
And it does happen right at this scale because obviously you guys are dealing with a lot of applications. It's not just like, let's say 5 per week or 5 per month that are trying to apply to you. It does happen, right? That something might slip through eventually.
Well, technically speaking, yeah, there might be someone who maybe is new to affiliates who one of their tasks is to verify new sites and might look at a site and think it looks okay and doesn't want to be too strict and verifies them. Now that does happen occasionally, but usually if there's like a problem with that, we'll catch it pretty quickly. And if they commit fraud, then, there are things we can do to ensure that doesn't happen again. But thankfully, that doesn't really happen that much. But to be honest with you, like we probably every single office that we have has like a dedicated person who will like check, or usually spread it between a couple of people in some instances, check them all on like maybe daily, maybe a few times a week. And that could range from, at the quietest time of the year, you might be checking like 60 a week. But like when we get into like busier periods, especially when there's like travel things going on, or like close to Black Friday, you could be checking hundreds, depending on the market. So that can really vary as well. Maybe it's just me. I feel like when you're especially now that I think you can identify certain, especially low quality publishers very quickly. You can go on a site and usually within like 10 to 15 seconds, you can just get a good feel of it straight away. If that's a really, really bad feeling and you want to click off the site, probably most likely so do every single consumer on earth. So if you get that immediate feeling, it's probably not really worth pursuing. But if you go on the site, it has a good look, it has good traffic, which you can check that in seconds. You can just have a little shop around, make sure everything seems okay. Then that might take a little longer, but that ultimately will end up being hopefully worth your time, because that could be more commercially viable.
Yeah, and to build off of that, Tom, like for a lot of our vetting, because we use automations, and obviously I can't talk about the volume that comes into our applications weekly, but we try to stay true to the principle that Shopify is for everybody. And so the whole ecosystem is for everybody. And I try to keep a mindset that, hey, in order to join the program, you have to click the box saying you read the terms and conditions. Plot twist, no one reads the terms and conditions. So that way when, hey, you joined, but you broke the terms, okay, well, we let you in, but now we're going to address that. And so that's kind of how we try to approach it. And sometimes it does lead to a little bit of churn on our end, but we do revisit how we're vetting our applications like 2-3 times a year, and to see, are there more potent ways to leverage automation versus manual review.
Okay, fair enough. Tom, what you said is you might have somebody else on the team that might not be as experienced. So, I mean, obviously, we're all quite experienced, right? So we do have that knack for quickly spotting something. So I love how this is actually all tying in. So for the viewers, we never spoke about this prior to this session. And actually, everything that's being said so far is already tying in quite well with what Chris and I have been saying. Is we need that training up front as well, right? You need to educate people on what kind of things you need to look out for. What are the main, red flags, let's say. So yeah, just from my personal experience, I had a team member message me and said, hey, I let this affiliate in by accident. What should I do? Do you know them? So I actually prefer people making mistakes sometimes like this. So even like Mike, in your situation, you have your automations, right? You might let something in. Eventually you'll catch them. Just own up to it, see how you can improve it. And it's good that people are actually proactively asking more senior people about it and saying, hey, I messed up. Can you please help out? So training, would you guys all agree that's definitely something where it starts, this whole prevention thing?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm sure Mark will agree, but like there are instances for us, it's not, maybe not even just an internal thing. Yes, like thankfully when it comes to like, a new person to Tradedoubler making a mistake, that's like thankfully few and far between, but those things do happen. It's very natural occurrence, very normal. But on the flip side of things, it might be a case of you're speaking to a brand who doesn't really understand like the terms of how affiliate fraud works. Like ad hijacking is like the prime example. Like someone will see an ad hijack in Google, which is like paid search impersonation. If anyone's watching this and they don't know what it is, someone's impersonating their brand and they see a paid search ad in Google and they start panicking and freaking out and assume that this is the worst thing ever. But 9 times out of 10, this is like something we can very easily fix. We can identify who they are. You won't lose any money. We can get rid of all the commission, get them off the network or whatever. But that education beforehand, to let them know how this sort of operates, what we do to check it and things like that, it kind of puts them a little bit more at ease, because we do occasionally get a brand to email us like really scared that this thing's happening or maybe really aggressive, and a lot of the time we've already caught the ad and we've already found who the publisher is and that kind of thing. Those kinds of things do happen a lot. Yeah, a lot of like training, it goes to us every sort of part of the journey, if that makes sense.
Nice. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, training and education is key. I worked in affiliate marketing for a little bit prior to working at Adpolice, and it took me a while to grasp everything, because I guess, we're focusing here just on affiliate, but it took me a while to learn the ad hijacking, the brand bidding, Google policies, scanning infrastructure, like loopholes, black holes, like all of these things that basically, have then potentially can cause systematic problems within affiliate marketing with regards to fraud and stuff like that. It can take a while to grasp this. And I realized that when speaking to a lot of people that I have done in my job, and I got an email from somebody the other day, and I was kind of tempted to like obviously share this just with regards to awareness, really. And he was like, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna change our policies, and we're gonna be doing a few changes, and that should sort the problem out." And we had a consultation kind of a month before. They've got such a severe amount of fraud within the program, and then I sent him kind of a reply to that, and was just like, "Well, what are you doing? Like, what are you checking? How are you checking it?" Because since we last spoke, the fraud has gone even in a worse direction. And his reply was, "Yeah, we're not interested for now." And it's just and there could be like a lot of reasons for this. There could be educational, and the unfortunate thing is, and this is something we've tried to create a little bit more awareness about it. Affiliate managers, they're targeting on revenue. There could be an inclination that sometimes it's good to just ignore fraud, because ultimately it's making their revenue or their KPIs look really strong. But obviously that destroys the bottom line. And I've had conversations with a few companies in the last year that are also struggling financially. When I've spoken to consultants who have come on board to basically find out where the money's going. And obviously this topic of fraud is one aspect of why some businesses are struggling at the moment, is because of affiliate fraud is causing, hundreds of thousands, if not millions worth of damage annually, especially for large brands like Shopify, for example. If they didn't manage their program and they didn't have people in the company that actually had a duty of care, the revenue loss would be just extreme. And I don't think people realize the extent of the damage that is actually caused by these problems. So one thing is education, but one thing is also taking accountability and people that care. And I think when we had the kind of catch up last week, it's why obviously when I speak to Tom and Mike, you're obviously working in two different companies, but you give a shit. You care about what you do. You want to help. You want to support. You want to do things right. You want to learn. You want to grow. It's also why you're on here, because you're willing to share information and also to share how you guys are doing things.
I think what's really interesting there too is that usually, because we're all an affiliate, we know that at some companies there's one person that's running affiliate, influencer, or all of paid marketing. Affiliate fraud requires a lot of dedication and effort and time, and some people just straight up don't have that. So they get told it doesn't really matter as long as it's, contributing to the prime KPI, just let it go, because you have 3 other channels that you're responsible for, and easily affiliate fraud could become a 40 to 60 hour a week job for one person. So I think that's also part of it, is that a lot of the brands don't have the staffing, because to your point, the education plays in where they don't understand what is happening and how big of an issue it actually is until they have to make a decision of whether or not to close an affiliate program.
Yeah.
And then that's usually the telltale sign that the one person that was in charge of the whole program left.
That's so true.
I've seen that before as well. Guys, I don't know. It's a little bit painful, to be honest. So there was a case. It was also, I think it was already a few months ago. We're almost in June now. I don't really know what it is, to be honest, so maybe somebody in this session can clarify it for me, but we literally had a brand that we were doing an audit for, so they did paid search and things like that, so basically trying to provide more services. And then during the affiliate part of the mini scan that was done, I did it myself. I literally pointed out that they are probably going to lose, if they clean things up, 2 million in affiliate revenue just from one affiliate, actually. So then you translate that back into numbers. That's almost 300K in commissions for that specific guy. And then they asked me to prove it. So they said, is this really revenue that we can get ourselves, or are we going to lose this revenue? So to me, the problem occurred when I actually proved with cold hard data, so doing the paid search account analysis plus the fraud analysis plus basically the affiliate network data all combined, it clearly showed versus also the other affiliates with a bunch of metrics, even for example, new versus existing customers. He was the only guy that was bringing in existing customers. Everybody else was doing, let's say, 70+% new customers, and this guy was doing almost 11% new customer acquisition. All that data combined turns out that he was just literally ad hijacking. It was clear as daylight. You literally saw Google Ads, you saw the ad, then you saw the redirect of the brand's URL with one letter missing. So to a naked eye, to a consumer, they're not even going to notice. And there was no landing. There was nothing. It was literally just a domain name used purely just for that redirect with affiliate tracking inside it, lands on the brand's website. And that way, that guy's making almost 300K in commissions every year. Even though I provided all of that and said, just put that money into your, so I think I've posted about this as well several times, but put that money into your paid search. You're paying 27 euro CPA on the affiliate commission, and their own, on the exact same keywords, their own paid search was doing less than 2 euros CPA. So why would you not want to turn that off and invest more in your paid search? So I guess maybe this is a better question for Mike then. from a brand's perspective, when even if your CPA would increase from your paid search stuff, because obviously the more money you put in, like your ROAS tends to go down, right? So even if it goes to 3, 4, 5 euro CPA, isn't that still way better than paying 27?
Yes. So luckily, at Shopify, our paid search team works pretty closely with us. And I think it's also very different when you look at the brand, if it's B2B or like D2C, where like D2C, yes, that makes complete sense. But with B2B, a lot of affiliates are basically like, how do I put it? They're like course creators, they're mentors that are making those referrals. So it's not so much like, here's my blog, now go purchase this. It's more of, I'm taking someone that would not have considered this and bringing them directly right to like the gate to sign up. So I think it is a little bit different for those types of programs. But I do agree with you that if you're able to optimize and it's just better to put the money towards paid search to reduce your CPAs, yes, of course. I think in our case, B2B is a little bit different because paid search might not be capturing those people. Typically in B2B programs, we're seeing that the end user is more likely to follow the advice of a personality, an influencer, someone who knows what they're talking about to guide you because it's a business related thing. It's not, let me send you over to Amazon to go buy a random item that I could have just searched for on their website.
But you actually mentioned something quite important here, is that they actually talk about from an authority perspective, right? They actually carry some authority. But in this case, it was pure redirect with absolutely no added value, brand bidding on those keywords. So it's a completely different story, but I assume you would also not allow something like this, right?
No, not at all. We would.
Right, exactly.
We kind of joke that I am the executioner sometimes because when I find it, I don't issue warnings, I issue terminations. And
Perfect.
You get no notice, you get told, and then our platform doesn't let me kick you out immediately. I have to wait until midnight of the next calendar day to formally remove you. But I can at least tell you that when someone's removed for violations, we also have our platform block them and their account from rejoining the program. Now, there are ways that you could get around that by just making a new account, but we do block that account, and we tell our platform that we're kicking them out and blocking them because we found that they're fraudulent. So you should probably tell other brands to remove them from their programs as well.
Nice. So, okay, that almost actually ties into the next topic of this session. That was a pretty good little bridge, I would say. Let me just dive right into Tom then. Tom, what happens from your perspective when you get such a request? Because I wouldn't really necessarily call it a KPI for fraud prevention. That's already fraud management, I guess, right? But I just wanted to ask, what happens in your situation when brand lets you know about something like this? How do you handle something like that?
I guess it depends on the type of fraud committed. If it's 100%, so a good example, we actually had one recently where a brand told us that all of these orders that have come through, they were attached to like phone numbers, because they're like lead generation basically. And obviously to us as a tracking network, that information looks fine and is correct. The brand will take those numbers, they'll call the numbers, and then they'll find out that they're all fake, and then they'll tell us. That is like Mike would say, I would do the same thing. Just you don't get a notice, you get kicked off the network, all your commission is deleted, you're gone. Like that is clear identifiable fraud that a brand has told us about. If it was something that maybe we need to double check, make sure it's a bit, it's not as like straightforward, I guess. That's the kind of thing where we would have to like probably investigate a little bit further, because there are instances where we've been told about things in the past and we're not getting the right data, especially when it comes like ad hijacking. Sometimes we don't get like the data that we need, and if we have that brand in Adpolice and we're not seeing that same data, then it kind of makes it a bit difficult for us to take the right actions. But ideally, most of the time when a brand is contacting you, they've got the screenshots, they've got the receipts basically, and as long as they've got that and we can identify it, then perfect.
Are there any ways that you as a network can spot the KPIs for prevention? So when you get something like this, obviously it's reactive. Are there any things that you can proactively do as a network to spot things? For example, let's say several conversions from the same IP address. That's more like a technical thing that you as a network can easily spot, right? And then you also have more like operational things that you don't necessarily directly spot, is, let's say, ad hijacking. So you as a network, what do you look at to spot potential fraud before even a brand can see that happen?
I mean, like you said, an IP address is a good example. A lot of the time it can be something as straightforward as the referral traffic. We can check where the ISP, the IP address, the country, to make sure it matches like the same market as the program, or at least where is allowed to be promoted. There's a lot of straightforward things like that. There's also the last click, like the specific referral. I mean, we've recently had an issue where say a sub network has a media buyer going through them. We check that they vouch for them, they get on the program. We check the traffic within 7 days, and we see that it's all coming from adult sites. We tell them, you have to remove this immediately from the brand, otherwise your entire sub network gets disconnected from the brand. And then they do that, and that's fine, and the brand is hopefully then none the wiser. That's all completely fine. Thankfully, that's not like a common occurrence in TD. We have like good things in place to prevent those kinds of things from happening. We have a great report that we get through that like scours the globe of basically every single like piracy site. They could be promoting us in like Jordan or Kenya and like Central Africa, and we'll find it if it's not from a piracy site. That's how comprehensive the report is. Those are the kinds of things that we can do. But like those are all pretty like straightforward like traffic related things, I think. But those are the kinds of things from a technical point of view that we have like oversight on. Thankfully, they're not like an extremely common occurrence, but I mean, if you're looking at like a media buyer, or an ad exchange, they join us or they come through a sub network partner. A lot of the time, when they start buying their traffic, and then you look into where it comes from, then that's when you find it out, and hopefully then we can get it squashed down almost immediately. But those things unfortunately do happen.
Yeah, of course. I don't think they will ever stop from happening. Whether people always try their luck, right? They get shut down somewhere, they try it again somewhere else.
We occasionally do get some people who are ad exchanges who want to breach into a new vertical. So they start going into that domain to start media buying, and the first thing they do is, how can I keep the cost extremely low? And they won't look at things like whitelisting and blacklisting traffic. They'll just focus on, how can I keep this cost low to make sure that I can drive a good volume of clicks or retain a good volume of sales. But by doing that, that opens up the floodgates to loads of poor traffic. We catch it and we tell them, and then they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. My manager's always telling me, try and give the benefit of the doubt if you think that, especially if it's a publisher's first time making an error, try and give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just because I've worked in compliance a long time, but I can get very cynical about fraud sometimes. I just assume that they probably some guy like Master Genius, and I have to get rid of them straight away.
Do you have a blacklist by any chance?
Yeah.
Without calling names, obviously, but like, you have blacklists of affiliates?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we, similar to what Mike said, if someone is, once we block them, then that prevents them from rejoining. There are obviously some people who, thankfully, we have the occasional person who will just rejoin and just use the exact same name, and they have a very similar name, or a very unique name, I should say. And we go, oh, you're just the same guy from before. We just immediately delete you again. Occasionally they'll join and they just register the same site, and we go, well, you're not even trying to hide it. Those kinds of people are very, 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 very easy to catch. If all fraud was like that, my job would be so easy. But obviously that's not how it can be.
Mike's face looked like that's a common problem.
Yeah, man, like I've always said, if you're gonna play a game, play a good one. So, like, if you're gonna do fraud, at least try to cover your tracks. Like, come on, don't make it so obvious. For example, we removed an affiliate who rejoined with 32 accounts under the same name, but just changed the number in the name, and we're like, wow,
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if you're the same exact person.
That sounds like pretty original.
Yeah, it's also like we spot a lot of trends just based off of we're seeing a big spike in a KPI from this affiliate who's in this region, and we're like, this is probably suspicious. We look into it, it looks suspicious. We confirm with our internal fraud team, it is fraud, and we're like, okay, close it out, let's just get rid of them. But sometimes I'm like, you didn't even try to hide. Like, at least try. At least make my job like an investigator, and not just like, oh, wow, there's some gall there.
Make it fun, right? Make it a little bit fun.
Exactly. If not, it's just to Tom's point, you become so cynical about it, just being like, ugh, you're not even going to try. You're going to make it, oh, come on, why?
I have like a famous example that I always use when people are like looking at like when you're looking at like unusual activity. The most straightforward KPI is like a high order value or something like that. And one time we had a guy on a Belgian program drive a sale where the order value was like 4 million euros and the commission was like so high, and we looked at it and it's like, hit one click, one sale, and that was it. And we're like, I wonder if this is fake. I wonder if this could possibly be a fake transaction. This was years ago, but one of the most straightforward things to catch, immediate deletion. And even the brand was like, that was pretty much fraud, right? And I'm like, yeah, definitely.
To that point, Tom, at another place that I worked in the past, we once saw, for a very tiny region, there was a transaction for a $33,000 item. And we were like, this seems strange. And then we looked, and it turns out, oh no, someone bought heavy machinery and bought like a backhoe. Oh. And I'm like, okay, you understand why we thought that was fraud, right? And they're like, no, I don't understand why. Someone purchased heavy machinery. I'm like, people typically don't buy heavy machinery on auction sites. So I'm a little confused.
That's why it stood out, you know.
So they clearly were buying like an archived Versace like thing from
Yeah.
1983, right? Like that's what it
Yeah.
was, obviously.
Yeah, it's fun. Mike, are you able to, by any chance, share a couple of examples of which things stand out to you whenever you see, let's say, data or performance? What stands out to you that makes you wonder or makes you ask questions?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some stuff I can't disclose, but usually we're looking at like, all of a sudden out of nowhere, you had an extremely high amount of signups that we've never heard of you in our program. You just joined, and magically you're sending hundreds of signups. Seems a little odd. And recently we found there were a ring of affiliates that were tricking their way around our paid trial that we have that lasts 3 months. Because in our program, because it's public, I can share it, we commission out when someone converts to a full price plan. So you get 3 days free, 3 months for $1 a month, and then you have to pay for your full price plan. We had a ring of affiliates that were finding a way to cancel the store when they get told pay $1, and then exploiting that then we make you pay the full price plan when you go to reactivate the store. And as a result, they were trying to farm commissions, and we were able to catch that in one of our reports, and we're like, how did you convert a brand new person in under 3 days? And then we're like, it's because you somehow like found a loophole, and then 16 of you all decided to exploit it together, and all the timestamps are like within an hour of each other, and I'm just like, man, you all got in on this? This is not fun.
I wonder how people think that that doesn't really get noticed. So the thing is, at least from my experience, and I'm pretty sure Chris as well has seen this a lot of times, things get through that we just don't understand how it like can get through. So for example, like that 3 million revenue thing, the 16 guys doing this kind of loophole exploitations, right? I had the same thing just as a recent example as well from a cashback affiliate. So I'm not here to bash cashbacks, but some people, they know that they can get money back from their cashback purchases. So they en masse, and I'm not going to name the country, but all the IP addresses were from one country that is not even close to Belgium in this case, like not at all. It's on the other side of the world. And they were generating sales of like 9,000 euros when the average order value is like 60 euros. So, and they think that they can get away with this, that nobody is going to notice. And to me, at least from what I've seen a lot of times, and I'm really trying to fight this as well, you should never auto-approve conversions. So at least on like your sales, so if somebody returns something. So I guess from an e-com perspective, it's a little bit different, right? There you can actually return the product, and then you shouldn't pay the commission if it gets returned within the cancellation period. But there's a lot of brands out there that do auto approvals on the applications of affiliates, on the sales, on pretty much everything. And in this kind of stuff that exactly we're seeing right here, they get through, and nobody really seems to notice that, oh, this guy just started generating 100K last week and it was only doing like 5K per week, right? It's funny that we all kind of seem to have similar problems here, and we're all looking at the same things. I think they keep trying because they get away with it in so many other cases where people don't pay attention.
Yeah, definitely. I think like not everyone has a robust program, for example, in this case, or robust guidelines, quality checks, and it kind of falls back onto the education part, because if people were aware that these things happen and so forth, then there would be parameters in place to make sure this doesn't happen. Kind of falls back onto the previous part about educating, because if a company owner or a big business was aware that these things were happening on the regular, then they would have things in place to stop that. It's quite simple.
And preferably not the conflict of interest. So we're not afraid to let revenue drop. So for example, when we take over a program, we don't mind to drop on paper a lot of revenue in the first 2 months, because we do a massive cleanup, and then we start to actually proactively grow with the right partners, right? That's just our approach, but I wish more would do it like that, so then we would have less of these issues. So I guess we have to try and find a way to get that conflict of interest gone as well a little bit, but I don't know. I think that's wishful thinking.
When you talk about revenue drop, it's not really revenue drop. It's just one channel that appears like there is a revenue drop, but actually the revenue is actually increasing for the brand once you're removing all of this stuff. So there isn't really a revenue drop, maybe in theory in one channel.
Sometimes it's not even a drop, because if you're getting rid of sales that get deleted regardless, then ideally the approval rate will gradually increase anyway, because you're seeing more legitimate sales. The problem is it's like the ad hijacking thing you were saying before, Stefan, like the idea of like they're pulling real sales into an affiliate channel. That's a lot easier to slide and approve, because those sales actually do exist in your own system. And it's trying to prove that those sales shouldn't be in the affiliate channel in the first place. I think thankfully, like, at least in our experience from Tradedoubler, like the brands we work with understand that and understand that has to be stopped. And obviously we've had Adpolice to prevent those kinds of things. But I think there probably, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there were some instances of people not quite understanding why it's fraud and why it is you're losing money in those kinds of instances as well. As soon as you can kind of prove that and you focus on like high quality rather than like the immediate success of like, the program. Like if your only focus is driving quick sales now, that might seem fine month on month, but year on year, it won't make any difference because those sales will probably end up being deleted anyway once you start having like, I don't know, deduplication issues or other fraud issues and things like that. And I think as long as people focus on the best quality you've got, you'll always have success.
And you can also prevent those situations like Chris said as well, companies eventually going bankrupt because of issues like this piling up inside of a company. So that's, I guess, something that we're just keep trying to fight. I mean, obviously, the two of you are like the wrong people to ask this to do because you're already doing it, right? Chris, have you noticed that a lot of the things that both Mike and Tom have been saying are exactly in line with the things that we've mentioned before? So I think that's just great. We all seem to understand how this works. We just have to now make sure that other people understand this as well. Let's just finalize this with the third topic of the session, and that's the enforcement of it. So we already touched upon it, right, by kicking things out and things like this. Could you guys just summarize a little bit? So what kind of measures do you take to actually, I mean, let's just use the practical example of Mike has an issue and you notify the network. So Mike, how do you engage later? So what's your process? As much as you can say, obviously, how do you deal with making sure that people follow your rules? And then Tom, same thing as well. How do you as a network enforce the further prevention or let's say the management of the fraud?
Yeah, so for us, we have a pretty thorough decision tree that we designed, particularly myself and one other person on the team, designed for the affiliate program, that essentially we look at what the violation is, and that determines do you get a warning and what are the SLAs for response and action on those. But there are some that we consider malicious and intentional to a degree that it's an immediate removal, no questions asked, no chance to appeal, no chance to communicate. Because we've worked at other large programs where like there's always a chance that someone didn't implement your brand as a negative keyword match by accident in one region. That's a warning compared to, hi, you're using encrypted ad hijacking to pose as our brand, that you clearly took some time out to figure out how to do that. So it's malicious and you need to go. That's kind of how we look at it, is what is the severity of the violation and how intentional did it need to be in order to happen? But also we look at, has this person ever been flagged before for this? Or do they look very similar to another affiliate that may have been removed? But I can tell you we have a zero tolerance policy for like fraudulent store creation. We'll happily remove an affiliate with no warning, reverse any pending commissions, and block them out. But like for brand bidding, we kind of look at the context of it, and it's currently very human involved. So I'm usually examining it, trying to determine, okay, what is best course of action, rather than just saying, oh, we found something, let's just kick them out. And with the help of like Adpolice, we've been able to verify and have the receipts. So that way when they do write back saying, how dare you kick me out, I'm having my lawyers talk to you. And we're like, well, enjoy the screenshot of everything you did. Enjoy this redirect list and have fun with that. We'll be waiting, but I think you know what you did, and you're mad you got caught. Thanks.
And then you never hear from them again about that,
Nope,
right?
usually no. No, they magically disappear and never ever complain again, but then try to rejoin the program again under a different like account name. So, keeps me entertained.
Nice. Sounds pretty similar to how we approach things. And then Tom, what about you? How do you guys manage this?
It's pretty much like this, a very similar thing. It probably would be, it's probably the same on most networks, to be honest. But depending on the level of violation, it could be something as simple as a warning. Like if someone was like caught promoting on a malicious source, we might say, hey, this is a warning, right? If you go back, like talking about ad exchanges earlier, make sure you're whitelisting and blacklisting. Make sure you, not just buying the poorest inventory you can. You can do better than that. And that's a straightforward warning. But if the same thing was happening consistently at extremely high volume, then we have a system in place where when fraud is flagged, there are usually technically 8 outcomes that they can have. It could be something as straightforward as you just get removed from the program and that's it. But it could also be down to all your commission is forfeit and you are completely removed from the network. And we have to then figure out how to get that back to the clients and all that kind of thing as well, which thankfully doesn't happen that regularly. But that is obviously an extreme that can happen. But like Mike said, if someone is posing as a brand, like especially if, so thanks to in the Google Ad Center, obviously you can see the name behind the actual ad itself. And in Adpolice, you can connect them all together, which is a very useful thing about Adpolice. So if we look at our ad hijacks for a week and we see that maybe there's 10, and 8 of them technically all coming from the same person, because we can see that it's all connected under the same Google Ad Center, that we know that is not just someone trying to commit small-scale fraud to think they can get away with. That's someone committing very malicious, deliberate fraud in multiple countries. They need to be removed from the network immediately. And that's the kind of, we won't even give them, they'll just get removed straight away. There'll be no warning. We'll just let the brand know, we'll let the account managers know, say, hey, this is what's going to happen. You'll have to chat with them, figure out, make sure these commissions don't get paid out, those kinds of things as well. To Tradedoubler, I should say, we wouldn't pay anyone who's been removed, obviously. But there are obviously things where, like a brand bidding might result in like a warning, but even then, we do have a free warning system in place. Like if someone's committing the same offense over and over and over again, then we will take more severe action. Like if someone's consistently brand bidding, especially if they've been warned multiple times, then that's usually cases, not just for program removal, it can be commission forfeiture, and if necessary, it will also be network removal. We have a blacklist. We add those to the blacklist to prevent them from joining us again. We send them out to our sub-network partners so they don't have a backdoor onto any of the programs, and those are the kinds of things that happen as well. But obviously, I think it might be a bit of a safe answer to say that it does really vary, but that the screening process we've got, like most publishers who join Tradedoubler get rejected because of multiple reasons. It could be because they provided wrong information. It could be because they don't own the site. Someone tried to join us before, like saying that they had like the BBC. I'm like, well, you don't own the BBC, and secondly, you can't have the BBC as a display partner in the UK because famously they don't have adverts. So even in the methodology that you might say, oh, I was going to buy an inventory on there, you can't do that in the country you're registering it. So those kinds of things are a lot more straightforward. But once you get past that and you start looking at more complex things, then obviously we've got other methods to make sure that those kinds of things get prevented or whatever. But a lot of the time, it's about trying to. You have the main door. When people join the network, you cut them off. Anyone that gets past that, I always try to make the assumption that a lot of them might be, maybe this is a bit more cynical, but a lot of them, they do know what they're doing, and occasionally they don't. Like you said, it could be something as simple as not negatively matching a certain word when they're brand bidding and things like that. But that's what the warning system is for. From there, I think if you're giving people the chances a lot, then ultimately what you're doing is just giving them the chance to keep committing fraud, and that fraud will usually scale. And if they think, oh, I've got a smaller brand in another country that you might not be monitoring, I can probably get away with this. It's only a matter of time until they get caught realistically. It may be by us, maybe by their brand. It doesn't realistically matter, because the point is we don't want to get to that in the first place. We want to prevent that as best as we can. So ideally, if you cut it all off, you take it really seriously and say, you have made this egregious error, you get this warning. If they do it again, then you have to take the next steps as necessary, and that can be something as simple as, like I said before, commission forfeiture, network removal. And as long as those things are being adhered to and stuck to, and that you make it really clear from the get-go, like Mike said before, when they join, there is a terms and conditions that they should read. We try and make our codes of conduct really, we have codes of conduct on our site that are like 2 pages long, divided by a vertical, so that if you are like a voucher publisher, there's like 300 words that you have to read. That, yes, our main publisher policy is obviously a lot longer, but this one is dedicated specifically to you. And if you don't follow these very simple rules, you will be gone. And I also think that, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I also think that these rules are really obvious. They're really straightforward. And if you do make a simple mistake and it's a one-time thing and you get one warning, I think most people can live with one warning. That's fine. I have one warning on my Odeon account when I, skip out and go into a movie by mistake because I was busy doing something else. I'll live with one warning, right? But if you're getting it over and over and over again, then you've got to take it a bit more seriously. And thankfully, yeah, that's the kind of thing that we do.
Yeah, nice. Okay, that's actually more than fair, obviously. So from both perspectives, just a quick one from my example. So recently as well, there was a cashback affiliate. Again, going back to them because people just love to abuse them. It's these crazy consumers, but they were all fine up until a certain point. Then all of a sudden, like in November, they started to get a rise of this. And then eventually I said, I think it was after 2 months, I said, we have to kick them out, because even though we cancel the orders like almost immediately, like we noticed this stuff really quickly within, let's say, 1 or 2 days. And then it's immediately rejected before the sales approval period, the validation period comes into play. But I just couldn't keep dealing with it. Let's just put it that way. So apparently they had some more issues on their platform that have nothing, it's a more structural problem. So apparently it's easier for fraudsters to abuse their platform. So then what am I supposed to do? Just keep dealing with this and have our numbers being blown up every time and then have to remove it and, adjust it? Just costs a lot more work than you have to. So yeah, I tend to agree as well, Tom, like with what you said, and obviously Mike, you as well. Warnings are cool. Give it a couple times, but at some point it's enough. Like it's even if it's not a severe issue. So those guys weren't doing ad hijacking and stuff like this. So that's more of a softer issue. But it was still consistent enough that apparently nobody was doing anything about it. Then we just don't want to deal with it and we just turn it off as well. And we're like, okay, we'll focus on other sources. And I just want to say one thing as well is, Chris, thank you as well for Adpolice work, obviously, because I guess all three of us right here wouldn't be able to find a lot of things and a lot of evidence that we manually would it's just impossible to find. So I always just like to conclude this kind of thing and saying, yes, it's great when we have all these mechanisms in place in terms of vetting, the program terms, everything's clear. We talk to people, we make sure we make the right deals. Then you have the enforcement of it, right? Obviously, if you don't enforce and don't know what to look out for, like Mike said, when you convert somebody from the trial to like a paid within like 3 days, that's just impossible. You need to know which kind of KPIs to look out for, right? So that was a pretty good KPI. Tom, for example, from your side, if you have what you said, so about the ad exchanges, if you have like same IP address kind of stuff, so the more technical kind of things that you really can quite easily track. Well, it's not easily, but you guys just track them. You know what to look out for. You know how to actually deal with that stuff, right? So you have to know that to be able to do something about it. And then if you don't enforce, how are you going to actually, what's the point of doing everything up until that point? And if you don't have, so at least in my case, if I tell somebody, hey, you've been doing this wrong, so exactly like what Mike said as well, telling the guys, hey, you've been doing this wrong. Oh, but we don't know anything. We're gonna send you to court. Here's a screenshot. Good luck with it. So that's literally also a reason why I'm so for like this kind of, let's say tooling like Adpolice, is because without the evidence, you can say a lot of things, and a lot of people might fall into the trap of thinking, okay, no, this sounds like a pretty reasonable answer. I might have been wrong. Okay, let's just continue doing things that we did. If you don't have that evidence, if you can't back it up, then you'll have a lot worse conversations and you can actually solve things. So yeah, thank you, I guess, Mike, Tom, for doing the right thing from a brand, from a network perspective, for trying to fight this stuff. Christian, for adding an extra layer from an Adpolice perspective, obviously, to make also our life as an agency easier so that we can all help each other out to actually make this world a better place in affiliate marketing. So that's just a quick summary for me for the finalization of this topic. Would you guys like to add anything else? Maybe like an anecdote or something that just
I have
comes
a question.
to mind? Go for it.
So I'm going to go back to the first question of this podcast series, which is, where does the responsibility?
No way.
So I just, because obviously we've got like Mike here and Tom here, and like me and Ishran had like, we're like a married couple having an argument basically for quite some time. It's why we've done this podcast actually, was on the back of these kind of like conversations we were having. When it comes down to like managing frauds, like Mike, I'll start with you. Like, do you take responsibility as a whole, or are you like, okay, we use X network and actually they should be doing it? Or what's the idea there, or what's kind of your perception and mindset over such
You're gonna hate me. I believe that there is responsibility sprinkled all around. There's obviously responsibility on our end to catch things and to action on them, but there is responsibility for identification of these issues. And there's responsibility on the affiliates to not do these things. Like, that's part of it. You're entering a contract with a brand when you join their program, so you have to abide by the terms. Like, it shouldn't be okay, well, I'll do what I want, and if I get caught, I'll deal with it. You should take it seriously enough to be like, oh no, I'm taking the time to join this brand is letting me be in here. I need to follow their rules. But it is ultimately, the actioning is on the responsibility of the brand or the tool or agency that's managing the brand's program to actually do warnings and remove. But in theory, in an ideal world, the affiliates share responsibility of not doing the things. Like, that's
It's funny we never
personal
actually
belief.
mentioned the affiliate in this story.
Yes, not at all actually. Like, you're the
Like-
first person
That's kind of self-explanatory though, right? Like, guys, come on, man. Like, I'm gonna
You
buy
think.
like a chocolate bar in the store. I'm expected not to steal that bar. Like, come on, that's normal behavior. So I guess I didn't look at it from that perspective.
You would think.
Yeah, doing the right thing, consciously. And so I totally agree with that point with regards to like affiliates should also like, take responsibility. But yeah, when there's money involved, and in some case, well, quite a lot of cases we spoke about today with some of these transactions, and some of the fraudsters that we've captured, and some of the Google ad counts that we've seen where there's like 200 brands being frauded by one person, and they've got 50 accounts within each brand, for example, and they're earning 5-6K per account, and you're just looking at millions of dollars of commissions paid like monthly to some of these individuals. And so I can see why there is a need.
It's a lucrative business, man.
And if that kind of money is involved, but obviously it's just down to if that person is good and honest and truthful.
And Tom, what about you?
I mean, I don't want to piggyback on it, but I would say the same. I think it's a collaboration, I would say, realistically. But it does fall on the publisher. Ishvan, you said about the cashback earlier. If you have a cashback site, you have your own user base, you are responsible to make sure there's no fraud coming through. We even have some cashback users now who are savvy enough to ad hijack to get commission into their cashback account. That does happen. And there's part of the publisher side of thing there to make sure that that's being prevented. But then, I mean, maybe that goes without saying, obviously, but it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. There are some things that we have total visibility on as a network that we can do to prevent fraud. And there are some things that we don't have any visibility on, that no network has visibility on, that only a brand does. And that's where you have to come together to locate the brand and locate the fraud and make sure that it's stamped out. It could be something as straightforward as identifying a lead or IP addresses or anything that we've spoken about before. If you collaborate together, it all ties in, I think, realistically with the idea of education and knowing what types of fraud there are when you operate in a certain channel, whether there be loads or something as straightforward as ad hijacking or whatever it is, and knowing how to monitor it and ideally prevent it. Because yes, it's very straightforward for everyone to say, well, shouldn't a network be preventing every fraudulent publisher from joining? Well, we've already seen that there are some incredibly intelligent fraudsters who know how to get onto networks and then divert all of their ad hijacking through multiple agencies that are based in other countries that aren't even relevant to the place that the site operates in. And it's extremely intelligent. Even I'm not going to tell the biggest cashback sites in all of England to stop working with us because they've got some bad users. That's not how it works. But as long as we're always being proactive as well as reactive when necessary, and we work together to get rid of it, then ideally these kind of channels can be risk-free, because you can prevent the idea of losing money on paid search because you're able to catch it a lot quicker. And if you can make sure that you aren't paying commissions to those fraudsters, and that if you mistakenly do pay the network, that the network reimburses you that money, then you can always make sure that as a brand, that if you have a program like that the risk is extremely minimal. And I do think at TD that it is extremely minimal, because as long as we work in collaboration and prevent those kinds of things, then we'll always be good.
Yeah. So just this probably might be a quite tough question to answer, because I'm very solution orientated, and what is the actual then solution for this from a publisher perspective and an affiliate perspective? How do you then negate that issue then? Are we talking about if someone does ad hijacking and they're stealing money, that then should be a prison sentence behind this, for example, when they're outright stealing? Because ultimately, these fraudsters are in theory, if you're running a shop at a clothing store, it's a parent partner of yours coming into your store, opening up the till, taking 10 grand out and walking out. That's basically fraud. So I'm just wondering, would there need to be more of a legal recourse here to then prevent people from actually doing it in the first place? Do you think this would be a solution, or is there anything that you would think of that could actually support these affiliates and publishers from doing any wrongdoing?
There's a precedence for this, right? That this has never been established as an actual crime, because let's say Google bidding is the Wild West. People call affiliate the Wild West, but if you look at Google bidding, it seems to be even more of a Wild West. They literally make money off fraud. There's no precedence for it, so nobody can really revert to it. So yes, the analogy is actually quite accurate, right? But Mike, you have an issue that's a pretty severe one recently. Maybe you can say something about that.
Yeah, it's something that truthfully, I don't think that there's any brand that has a legal team that would go after it in that way, just because of the extensive amount and costs of trial, because you'd have to find someone guilty, because it's technically not illegal anywhere to do these actions.
Yeah.
But I think the line gets crossed, and brands tend to take more notice to it if employee or a consumer's data was compromised as a result of this action. Then you're able to really say, okay, now that's been an actual threat to my company, and to our users. So now you can try to hunt that person down. As Tom mentioned, some of them are so sophisticated that we'll never find out who the actual person behind the company is.
Yeah.
So it's just very, very hard. I think as AI gets more sophisticated, that might be something that gets incorporated into monitoring tools of like, here is the mailing address and the name of the person that like owns this company or owns this like Google ad profile. Now, if you feel that you need to send them a like official legal warning, you can. But I think there's a lot of moving pieces that even large brands really don't want to spend the time on the resource for that, just because technically there's no law that says you can't brand bid or ad hijack. It'd be more like Google decided, hey, if we catch you on this, we're going to like come after your legal entity and Google's going to sue you or advocate for
Yeah.
like legal punishment.
So that's what I was about to say as well, is actually you as a brand would also have to work with several other players involved, like Google. You have to get documentation from them, which goes through a whole chain of its own complexities. So yeah, it's not worth the hassle, let's put it that way. And because
Yeah.
it is, like Mike said, it's not actually illegal right now to do it. And that's why Google just lets it run too.
You have to like set the precedent, but then you have to go to like a court and tell a judge what ad hijacking is and why it's stealing.
If you can't even explain to your family and friends what affiliate marketing is, how are you going to do that to a judge?
I'm not trying to explain to someone that's like, but I don't know if I've ever I've never used an affiliate. It's like, how, let's do a live demonstration of how I'm going to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I can only imagine trying to explain that in a court of law.
I hope.
Yeah.
So
I guess
good
also
question,
these
actually.
people as well is another thing, because some of these people are hidden in the depths of Timbuktu somewhere, in some obscure location off planet. So it's just like to try and actually find these people behind these hidden accounts with fake credit cards and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's
In a country where there's maybe no treaty of information exchange or something like this, you just will never
Exactly.
get to those people in the first place, right? So yeah, nice, good closer, Chris. That was hard to admit that we can't really do anything about this whole problem, other than kick people out.
I mean, what it ultimately proves is that all of our jobs are very necessary and that we
Yeah,
should be
it's
employed for
important
a
that we're
very long time.
Nice one, Tom.
nice shout there, Tom. Nice shout.
Yeah. All right, no, nice. Thank you very much, everybody. I think this was a pretty cool chat. I appreciate the insights as well. I'm really happy to hear that basically we all, without, again, like I said, without actually speaking to each other about any of these contents before, we actually aligned pretty well. So this was all coming purely from you guys, from your experience. That goes to show that there is sort of an understanding of a baseline that we should be doing as experts, as more seniors. And then we also understand clearly that we should do our best to actually educate the younger ones, the juniors, to try and hand over the stick so that they can also help in fighting this battle. So once again, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you very much, Tom. And of course, Chris, for joining this session. I liked it very much. I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Cool, man.